front of you to talk about a subject such as an active shooter. There's nothing I ever wanted to come to such a beautiful place of worship and have to talk to you about. I brought several people with me here, and this demonstrates what kind of a partnership we have. Commander Ashlock and Lieutenant Carswell are from the Beach Police Department, and you will notice throughout St. Johns County the relationships that we have with all of our first responders are top-notch, and that is why you can feel better about the services you get provided by us, because we all have the same relationship and the same want to make sure that you are all safe. Father, Sheriff Shore, he was with me walking out the door, and of course you can understand how many directions he gets pulled in. He'd apologize for not being here himself. So he wanted me to make sure I pass that along to you. So I also brought Deputy Bora. This is Shannon. She is actually the one that's going to be performing the tasks of talking about the women's personal safety. We call it the WAVE program, and it's in conjunction, of course, with the Beach Police Department as well as the City Police Department. It's for women, taught by women, and we call it the WAVE program, Women Against Violent Encounters. It's a very, very good program, and we have been putting on a lot of them lately. So I would like Shannon just to touch on that real quick, kind of give you an idea of that before we get into our main topic here. But it is next Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think it's 9:45 to 11:45 also for 2 days. So this is Shannon, and she is with our WAVE program.
Good morning. I'm Deputy Shannon Bora from the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, and like my sergeant said, the WAVE program. It is typically a 2-day class, 3 hours long. In the first class, we give you what to be aware of. Pay attention to your surroundings, listen to your intuition, walk with your keys in your hands, just tips to prevent from being a victim. We also show you tactics, and we demonstrate. The tactics, and we give you all each punching bags and pair you all up to where you can practice the tactics on each other. Then typically the second night of the class, we have one of our instructors, perhaps Commander Ashlock or the chief from the Beach Police Department, dress up in what we call the Red Man suit. It's a padded suit to where the women get to practice what they learned the first night on an actual subject. It's a whole lot of fun, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And women, I hope you all do too.
Just touch on that. I've been thrown to the ground a few times in the Red Man suit. I get nervous every time I go in there because there are quite a few ladies that are very proficient with the skills that they teach. So I come out with a few bumps and bruises. Just caveat what Sergeant Priester said. We got a great relationship, and I can guarantee if there was something, a critical incident happened here at the church, 100% guaranteed there would be beach police officers here, even though this isn't the county. We may come down here for routine stuff as well to assist the county, just like they do in our jurisdiction. So complete confidence in Sergeant Priester puts on an excellent program, been doing this for a long time, and he's really got some good insight into what to do to better prepare yourselves, and just happy to be here. So if you have any questions about the beach afterwards or during, please feel free to ask.
So, Lieutenant Carswell, you have anything? And I'll get to Josh Buck in just a minute because he's going to bring it home for us. But we're all here to try to enlighten you. It's a bunch of information I'm going to give you, and believe it or not, I'm going to give you a kind of a disclaimer. Nothing I tell you is 100%. However, would anybody take 40% over a 0% chance of survival? Well, that's what we're here for. Anything I can give you today, it may be a very small tip, but it may be the one thing that you can remember that can get you through a critical incident. Hopefully you will never have to go through it, but the first step is you being here today and understanding that you have a duty because of your role here at the church. You are the eyes and ears. The actual staff of the church can't be everywhere. So that's why you, and thank you for volunteering to be your role here so everyone will feel more comfortable, come in more efficiently, and be able to worship in peace. And that's what we want. So the active shooter program is based on 3 words, okay? We'll get to those because I want you to make sure you remember them. And we have a way for you to remember each word, okay? So the active shooter program is kind of basic. It's not really high speed, low drag like you would hear some military guys say that it's this special thing that everybody needs to know and it's very difficult to remember. It's simple to remember. The things that we're going to talk about will hopefully give you one thing to get through if a critical incident happens. Each of you understand that there's only the 2 exits here and the exit in the back that is open during service. Everybody remember that? Okay. So if someone comes in and they look out of place, what do you think? Probably out of place. If your spidey sense or something is telling you the hair on the back of your neck is standing up and saying, you know what, that doesn't look right, it's better to make eye contact and ask them what you're doing here. If you start with something as simple as that, most folks that have bad intentions, if they are simply challenged, they'll stop what they're doing. I can tell you for a fact in our line of work. So we may give you a couple of things that might seem humorous. Of course, I don't want you to think we're making light of the situation of what we're here to talk about because they are absolute horrific incidents. However, if I can't bring it back up, we'll sit here and talk about gloom and doom and you will leave out of here thinking the world's coming to an end, and I don't want you to think that. We will plan for the worst and we're going to hope for the best. But in St. Johns County, we have plans in place, our mutual understanding, our memorandums of understanding with the city and the beach, all the other state law enforcement agencies here. So if an incident happens, believe me, everybody that has in radio or phone contact is coming to help. Okay? So I'm going to give the microphone over to Josh Buck, and he's going to start into basically what is an active shooter, and then go through what you can do. And then towards the end, we're going to actually have more of a question and answer session, because if we can get you to start thinking, what if, we've taken the second step. Because the first step is you're here because you want to know more. The second step is having a plan and start thinking about what if it happened here. And then we're going to tell you what to do if it does. All right? Here's Deputy Josh Buck.
Good morning, everyone. So I typically do this presentation with a PowerPoint. So I kind of have a guideline to go by. So if I jump around a little bit, please forgive me. It's a dynamic situation. Critical incidents are dynamic situations. The main purpose of us being here today and discussing this is to broaden your awareness. Awareness is key in everything, not only here at church, but when you go to the grocery store, at home, anywhere you go, with yourself, your family, is awareness. Be aware of your surroundings. Like Sergeant Priester indicated, be observant of people. You have a congregation here of regular patrons that you see on a daily basis, or even just on the weekends when you come to service, or throughout the week. However, you also have a transient community here in St. Johns County, so we allow people to come and join our services. We don't know those people. We don't know what they're capable of. We don't know what they want to do. So that's what the definition of an active shooter incident is: one or more individuals with their intent of committing murder to typically an unrelated group of people congregating in an area, whether it's a religious sect or a business or out in a public venue. So it's something that we aren't aware of all the time. We can't predict who is going to do things. We don't have the analytics for the sheriff's office to understand where the next incident is going to occur. However, what we do in the sheriff's office is we plan for that. So previously, does everybody remember Columbine? That was roughly 20 years ago, almost 21 years ago at this point. And those two individuals, Dylan Harris and Eric Klebold, came in and murdered 12 people. They also they shot, I believe, over 900 rounds of ammunition and set off incendiary devices. They also plans to take it to another location. They set up bombs in the parking lot. This is our first big taste of what can occur. And it really kind of got that mindset going across the nation, what people are capable of. In big venues, like we saw in Las Vegas last year, or even a more recent one, which was at a yoga studio, which involved 3 people. So it's incumbent upon you to be aware of your surroundings. Stop with the complacency. I know it's difficult to do that. We get in the same habits. We go to the same grocery store. We only know where we came in and where we came out. Has anyone occurred to them that maybe they could check with the manager or even an associate to ask where that entrance and exit door is in the back, where the receiving facility is? Again, it's awareness. What are you going to do when the incident occurs? So that's where our specialty comes in of run, hide, fight. I bet everybody in the room knows what we do if you catch on fire. What is that? Stop, drop, and roll. Exactly. So this is the same premise. What are you going to do? What does our brain do psychologically and physiologically when an incident occurs? And that's usually stage fright or, flight or fight response. However, if you take a few seconds on a regular basis to go through the motions of what occurred, what can occur in a situation, like when you come into mass, what would you do if somebody came in that door and started shooting? That initial response phase is the problem. That initial taking that time to figure out what you're going to do or become a follower to the masses who are running out of the room. So that's where our 3 phases, the run, hide, fight. Our first phase is run. If you have the availability, I understand the geographic in the room. Some people aren't capable of running, some people aren't capable of crawling. But your first response should be to run, to get away from that danger. Because typically it's going to be a weapon. It's going to be either a handgun or a rifle that person is using. Bullets travel quickly, they travel fast. So if you have ability to get out of this building, and as Sergeant Priester indicated and Pastor indicated, there's only 4 exits in this room. 2 of them at the back of the room, and then the remainder of them out there. 2 up front, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. So, that's great, you guys already know. This is my first time here. But I will tell you that's been a little bit of a segue of our response as the Sheriff's Office. Previously, as you saw, or as it was highly criticized, what occurred down in Brevard, where the SRO did not go in immediately to assist. We, as the Sheriff's Office in the last 3 or 4 years, do active shooter training on an annual basis. And what we are prescribed to do now is go in as an individual. We're not going to wait for the special teams to show up. We're not going to sit there and make a game plan outside. If any one of us are capable of responding and we have a firearm, or regardless of what we're carrying, we will come in and help you. That is what we took an oath to do to give our lives to save others. So no, anywhere in St. Johns County, our average response time is 3 minutes. 3 minutes or less. There is not any place in St. Johns County that a law enforcement officer cannot be here within 3 minutes or less. The average shooter incident lasts about 12 minutes. So what does that tell me? You guys need to protect yourself in that first 3 minutes. You need to do whatever you can possibly in that 3 minutes until we can get here to try to start stopping the damage control. So the second portion of that is hiding. If you can't run, you're not capable of running, you don't have an exit to run to, hide. What are the locations in this room that you're going to hide? Hiding behind the pew is a concealment effort. However, it's not really going to protect you with bullets shooting everywhere. So that's obviously your second option, to hide. If you can get behind a locked door or in one of the storage rooms and can barricade, that's going to be your next best step. Do it with others if you're capable. And don't try to assist obstinate people. If someone is not willing, just like a drowning person, we're all familiar with what they say about people who are drowning. They will take you down with them if you're not capable of assisting them. Don't put your own life at risk if that person's not willing to move around. And then your third option is obviously to fight. This is our very, very last option. The reason being is because that fight is going to be a fight for your life. I don't know when the last time, I'm sure we have a lot of veterans in the room. We've had people from all walks of life who are here, what your capabilities are. But know very well in your heart that that is going to be a fight for your life. So whatever you do, whatever you use anything at your disposal, a candlestick, whatever you can get your hands to do that. And usually this segment is where people want to know about concealed weapons. We're not going to go into great details with that. I don't know what the policies are here at the church, who carries, if you have off-duty. I know somebody very special within our agency that happens to be a patron here. So what would you do as somebody with a concealed weapon? Are you capable of taking a life? Are you capable of dealing with the consequences if you miss that person and shoot somebody else? There's a lot more to it than simply pointing a gun at somebody and shooting. So keep all of that in mind. It's very a cautious situation if you are using a firearm. So make sure you get with your other congregation members and discuss that. There's only, actually Sergeant Priester indicated only one very good variable if that was the case. If you were in a room and everybody was behind you and that suspect is coming through the door, that would be the only best case situation too if you were going to use a firearm. I see kind of a lot of blank looks on people's faces right now as we're discussing firearms. So if that is not something you're comfortable with, get with us on an individual basis, contact the sheriff's office, and we can discuss it more. So so what are our three basic principles? Run, hide, and fight. So if you're not capable of doing any of those, then your best bet is to get with somebody else that can help you with those. Okay.
So run, hide, fight. That is what we're here to talk about. Run, hide, fight. Now, I told you I was going to tell you something that may seem a little humorous, but it's not to distract from what we're here to talk about. But the easiest way to remember run, we're not talking about, everybody remember if you were in a school, a fire drill. Everybody lined up, walked outside, got to the fence, turned around, looked at the building, wait for the big red truck to show up, right? Well, when we talk about run in an active shooter, 2 words. Forrest Gump. Everybody remember Forrest Gump? How he used to run like the wind blows. That is what we're talking about. And I understand everybody's physical nature may not allow them to do that. But moving away at whatever speed that is, away from the threat, is your first option. And that's what we want to get through to you. You don't have to be Forrest Gump. But if you're moving away from the threat, you're moving towards safety. Everybody understand that one? Let's talk about hide. Hide, more in depth on hide would be, like Josh said, we don't want to hide behind something like this. If anybody saw the coverage of the shooting down at the Fort Lauderdale Airport, there was a lady right behind the shooter. And it would be the equivalent. She hid behind one of the luggage carts that has basically an outline frame to where you can see clearly the person standing behind it. It would be equivalent of me hiding behind this for cover. This is not hiding. This is waiting to die. And I don't want any of you to do that. When we talk about hide, think about creating time. Because like Josh said, we raised our right hand and we are coming to save you. We are coming as fast as possible to get here to help anybody that's in danger. However, if you could help us, just create time between you and the threat. So you pick out any room in this building, restroom, closet, whatever. Anything you can do to keep the person away from you longer to let us get here, because I guarantee when we get here, we will take care of it. So, hide is creating time. Think of it that way. Not necessarily trying to just conceal yourself, but create time so we can get here. Is that a little bit better? Clear? Now fight. Like Josh said, I would never have thought in my law enforcement career that I would have to stand here and tell you how to prepare, or that I need you to prepare to be able to fight for your own life. I got into this profession so I could do that for you if I need to. Help however I could. And if it came down to fighting to protect you, that's what I would do. I never thought in my career that I would be standing in front of a group of lovely people like you, telling you that you may need to be able to fight for your life. I never thought it would come to that. But we're here and we're going to get through it. Like Josh said, we have plans. When we talk about preparing for us, we talk about tactics. We talk about marksmanship. We talk about using the equipment that the sheriff provides us, the best that money can buy, that the sheriff gives us. Those are things we do. The things that you can do are the run, hide, fight. If you can keep that back in your toolbox, ready to go, you'll be a lot better than most communities. So let's talk about, Josh said, what do you do if you're on fire? Now, do you have to do that in order? Yes. It would be a real good idea to stop, then drop, and then roll, because it might not work out too good if you do it in the other order. Good thing about run, hide, fight, whatever presents itself at the time, you may have to downshift and go to another option. It's not always run, hide, fight. It might be run and you're confronted with the threat and you have to fight. Or it may be you're already in somewhere where you can hide and start creating that time barrier. You can hide. That way we don't have to run. We're already in a place where we can't get out. So that is hide and maybe fight or maybe run. Because then after you hide, maybe you can see I'm not in the area of threat anymore. I can get out now, so then I run. So everybody understands it. However and whatever you need to do. Does everybody have a pamphlet? Josh passed those out? Yes, ma'am? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll get some more. We'll get some more for you. But in that pamphlet, we created this small piece that where you can keep it in your pocket or in your purse, somewhere that, you know what, if you're sitting there at the doctor's office waiting, or you're wherever you're waiting, you can pull that out and just kind of remind yourself of what to do. It's very important that you kind of brush up on it. Now, of course, Josh talked about concealed weapons. Now, we are in the South. We expect people to have concealed weapons. If you go get your concealed weapons permit, you will get a letter that's signed by our tax collector and our sheriff. The first line in that letter is, "Congratulations for getting your concealed weapons permit," because he believes in it. The problem is, you get that concealed permit, you have to do some kind of safety course to make sure you can operate a firearm, okay? Make sure you know how to handle it. Make sure you know how to store it, keep it on either your person or in your car. It goes through all of that just to get the license. Most people don't ever practice with their firearm. So you have a firearm, and the reason we would not suggest that you use that in an active shooter is this. Imagine you are a concealed weapons carrier and you go to Publix. You come out from Publix and somebody comes up to you with a knife and says, "Give me your money." You can say, "Hold on, let me get my money," pull out your concealed weapon, and defend yourself. Okay? Now think of how many people you think are going to call 911. If you're in a Publix parking lot, maybe not many people around. How many people you think? 10 at the most? So 10 people may call. But what do you think most people will think? "Hey, what's that firecracker doing in the parking lot?" Right? How many people have ever heard that gunshots sound like firecrackers? If you are back here in church, if you hear a firecracker, it's not a firecracker. If it's a firecracker, we got bigger problems to worry about with that person. But remember, if it sounds like fireworks, it's probably not fireworks in this building. There's no reason that anyone would have fireworks inside this building. So if you start hearing something like that, think the worst. Okay? Be prepared, run, hide, fight, whatever you need to do. But back to our scenario. So we have 10 people call 911. Well, what has happened? The person, you have defended yourself. You have rendered the person no longer a threat. You holster your weapon, you put it in your car, whatever. Try to get first aid, call some people, call 911 yourself. Try to explain what happened. The difference between that and an active shooter is what? How many people do you think are calling 911? Everybody that has a cell phone, right? So the problem is, when I tell you about a concealed carry where I defended myself against somebody trying to rob me versus an active shooter, anytime that many 911 calls come in, there could be deputies there, there could be off-duty officers there, and we have a way to page everybody at the same time to say, something bad's happening wherever you are. So if that were to happen, and you pull out your firearm, thinking you're going to help, because it sounds like, you know what, a concealed weapons carrier versus an active shooter sounds like a good answer, right? Well, say somebody like me comes around the corner and you as a concealed weapons carrier just shot at or shot the bad guy. So I come around the corner and I see what? How do I know who you are? See how the problem starts there. Risk versus reward is how we break that down. What are the risks of me as a concealed weapons carrier bringing my gun out and trying to help in an active shooter situation? The problem is there's so many risks that it doesn't outweigh the rewards. The next one is, like Josh said, what if I shoot and shoot the wrong person? You are going to be criminally, civilly liable for that. Are you prepared to deal with that? Let's say you do pull your gun out and shoot the guy and they go down. I say guy because 98% of the time it's a male. He goes down. The threat is ended. Are you prepared to deal with that emotional roller coaster that you've just taken a human life? That's something that most people don't think of. Because you know what, on TV, it goes to the next scene. You don't see what happens after the fact, right? They shoot people all the time, and it's like, well, does anybody ever think about that? Or does that even bother anybody after the fact? Something to think about. So if you are a concealed weapons carrier, like Josh said, we have one scenario where we have thought that, you know what, this is the most airtight you can get of a scenario to be where the risk is low and the reward is high. And that is, think about some of you have gone into a room and have tried to barricade yourself and you're hiding, exercising your hide option. But you know that the bad guy is at the door. He's kicking on the door or he's trying to shoot the door to make it open if it's locked or barricaded. You can basically say, I'm a concealed weapons carrier. Everybody get behind me. Okay, it's basically hold my drink, watch this. Okay? So if that happens, we have checked a couple of boxes. And what are those? Do we have anywhere else to go? We're kind of backed into a corner. Can we defend ourselves if we're backed into a corner? Yes. This is yes. This is no. This is I don't. All right. So we backed ourselves into a corner, and we are able to defend ourselves and everybody else in the room. Then, do we have the ability to defend ourselves? If you're a concealed weapons carrier, you would have that ability. But there's no, or a very low chance that you're going to be mistaken for the bad guy if I'm on scene and I see a bad guy getting shot at the door. I'm going to have a good idea that, you know what, there's probably some people in there, maybe concealed weapons carrier, that he's trying to get to and they just defended themselves. You're not out in the open of, say, a mall or, say Walmart. How many people go to Walmart? Okay? Everybody goes to Walmart. You think about, if you go into Walmart and you go into like the grocery side, you go in just enough to look towards the garden center. How long of a shot do you think that is? About a 400-yard shot. Think about that as far as distance when you go into somewhere. It doesn't have to be in like a shopping mall. I know our mall here is not in the best of shape right now, but malls, the bigger malls in out of town. So think about that. That's why we're only comfortable saying that is a scenario that we would feel comfortable with you defending yourself. Okay? And we like to go a lot into depth on that because some people come to this, they say active shooter seminar. They're going to show me how to defend myself. They're going to show me how to fight. They're going to show me all of this. Well, it's not that I'm here to show you. Of course, everybody has a different skill set. Some people have different limitations, and it's not something that we can go into one-on-one with you. It would take a while for just this group. But we're here to talk about the concepts that we've already discussed, how that would benefit you here. Think about your position here. How are you going to direct people? If you know the threat is back there, somebody should be at a door here saying, go that way. Right? That would be your role. Does everybody agree with that? Because you know the exits. Some people, like Josh said, you may have some people from out of town you don't know, and they don't know where to go. Maybe this is their first time here. This is my first time in this building. But I can tell you this, if I see one of you, especially Ed or Marsha, I'm going to listen to what Ed says because I know he goes here pretty much every day. So think about that. Think about your role here. But then on the other side, think about if you're out shopping or something with your family. Say you're out to dinner. Say you're at a business doing whatever business you are doing and something happens. Have you told your family about these concepts? Have you discussed a plan with them? Because this is the first step, like I said, being here is the first step. Second step, if I can start getting you to say, well, what if this happens? That means you're already starting to think about how to negotiate that event if it happens. We have some videos that they're not real good and we don't really like to show them a whole lot, but it illustrates the point of this lady comes in and they're shooting in the mall. She's in the store. Well, everybody else is running this way. And this one lady comes out to the edge of the store and is looking out, and then she's like, oh boy, and then she runs this way. And a lot of people laugh at that. And the one thing is, how many times do you go to the Avenues Mall or something, and you park in the same place or the same area, and you go in the same door because you're familiar with that door? Maybe you don't know any other way out because you only go to a specific store to get a specific item because they have the best price. So you go do that, but you get in the habit of only going in one door. And it kind of limits you to now, how else would I get out of here if the bad guy is between me and that door? Do I know any other ways out? So you start thinking about being here's the first step. Second step, you're starting to think of what ifs. Third step, we need to have a plan. You need to have a plan with your family. If something happens here, this is what we're going to do. And I used to be assigned to the training section for several years. During that time, we had a shooting of 4 officers up in Washington. All 4 died. That gave us the idea to try to recreate that for several reasons. One, to try to show them that if something were to happen, what is each person going to do with no communication? Somebody is probably going to be looking at the door. Have you ever seen any kind of officer here in St. Johns County with their back to the door? Anybody? You won't. Why do you think that is? We're going to be ready for whatever comes in that door to make sure you're okay. That's why you will always see an officer facing the door. If he's not facing the door, somebody across from him is. So those 4 people sitting at that table that died that day gave us the opportunity to recreate that to see what our officers would do in that situation. We let it happen without telling them it was going to happen. Caught them totally off guard, kind of a master of scenarios. So I caught them all off guard. They did not know what's happening, and when it did happen, we had different responses. Some folks said, this isn't the job for me. We had that extreme, but then we had the other extreme of perfect handling it, dead on shots, ready to go, ready for the next thing that came in the door. So the reason I tell you that story is, the other side of that is, we talked about 4 officers at a table. Well, now how about if Josh is out with his family? He's going to be the only person with a gun. Well, what is he going to tell his family to do? So that's when we started coming up with a plan to where if we sit down at the table, I'm going to tell Josh, I'm watching that door and I'm going this way if anything happens. And he will tell me what he's going to do. So we start communicating our plan. Okay? The next thing we have to do is practice. Right? Practice our plan. So, once we get all that in place, how much better prepared are we going to be if something happens? Does everybody agree we would be? Remember, this is yes, yes, no. All right. So, anything else?
Our response again and how we will address everybody when we come in and what our expectation of is from you to not have things in your hands, to not have your purses and bags. We get so complacent. We're so entrenched in our personal belongings, especially our phones, that we want to record everything. So as a law enforcement officer, when I respond to something, I will probably have very basic information when I'm responding. So I need to differentiate you and a suspect. So from a distance, the bottom of this microphone, what does that look like? A barrel of a gun. So it would help us tremendously if you do not have anything in your hands and we are identifying you as a civilian. And second of all, depending on what you see Commander Ashlock and Lieutenant Carswell here in their nice uniforms. We have uniforms as well. This is kind of a Class C uniform for us. I may come in shorts and flip-flops if I'm around the corner. If I'm off duty and I'm carrying, which say 99% of us do, I'm going to come because I gave my life to do that. So we are going to come here and you're not going to know the difference between us and a law enforcement officer. But what I will tell you, because we are law enforcement, we're going to be given loud verbal commands, and probably very aggressively. That may not be coming from a suspect, so you at least can differentiate us. So even without a microphone, a little intimidating. It can be, but that's what our response is going to be. So expect that and help us when we respond. I think that was all I had.
So, now it comes time, all this information I've just given you. Anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
From what you just said, unfortunately, we've all seen people vacating the buildings and they have their hands up. So you're suggesting, like we have the children over here at times, you're suggesting we get them to put their hands in the air.
Absolutely. Anything, the question was, do we suggest everybody have their hands up? Yes. And the reason is, if I know your hands are clear, I know you're not a threat to me. And that's why. Next question is over here. Yes, sir. Well, the question was, what about pepper spray to defend yourself? And in an isolated setting, I would say it's a good idea. But the last thing you want to do is pepper spray somebody with a firearm, because what will they start doing? They won't see where they're shooting, and they'll just start shooting, because they're scared. It'll take their vision away. Not something I would suggest, absolutely. You ever heard bringing a knife to a gunfight? Well, you never want to bring pepper spray to a gunfight. So think of the worst of they have that ability. You don't want to be that close, one, to pepper spray them. And two, you don't want to do that because it will take their vision away, and then maybe start shooting aimlessly. So maybe create more damage. Any other questions? Okay, over here. Yes, ma'am. One. Yes, ma'am. Okay. The question was, how many people would you suggest trying to get somebody down? If we have run out of options of run and hide, and the fight option is what we have in front of us, the more people, the better. Somebody may get shot. Somebody may get hurt, twist a knee, whatever, but they'll be alive. An example of that, the Virginia Tech shooting, where they actually locked the doors and he went down and executed 20-year-old college-age men. If they would have, 2 or 3 of them would have jumped up and said, you know what, today is not the day I'm dying, and challenged him, what would he have done? He may have shot one more, but there again, that wave of violence against him may have stopped more killing. You can go on, everybody familiar with YouTube? You can go on YouTube and search Department of Homeland Security, and they have a video of Run, Hide, Fight. And it shows, the last image is several different people grabbing from a heavy book to a fire extinguisher to a chair, anything they can get to try and jump on that person. And of course, we didn't talk about it, but if the bad guy's coming in this door right here, we don't want to be over here, right? To attack him, to defend ourselves. We want to be right there at the door. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Reaction time, we'll be able to be right there on him so we can get the jump on him. And as many people can hit, and it's time to take the frustrations out, that would be an excellent time. Yes, sir.
A good example of getting together and fighting is remember the last hijacked aircraft? Basically, the passengers took over the airplane, all of them still crashed. It saved a lot of people on the ground.
Absolutely. Flight 93, that they challenged the hijack. Yes, ma'am. Somebody had a question right here. Yes, ma'am. I would be able to differentiate if you are hightailing it out of the place and with nothing in your hands, whether you have them here and you're running, or you have them here where I can see them if you're first coming out of the building. But if you're moving away, that means you're not a threat to me anymore, trying to find the shooter. Because first priority of law enforcement on scene, stop the killing. First priority. I'm going to pass by people that are shot. I'm going to pass by people begging for help. To stop the killing. Priority 1. Hopefully, by the time I get there, they've already killed themselves. But if not, I'll take care of it for them. Okay? So that's something that you have to understand that we have specific motions. And if you're leaving the building, I know that you're not still in there being a threat. Any other in here? Okay. Absolutely great question. However, if you base that time off of Commander Ashlock's reload, you don't have very much time. So it would depend on that bad person's skill level. And if they have that, the ability to have firearms, more than likely they practice. They've thought about having bad intentions, and they just wait for a time to carry it out. That's why Josh said we can't predict it. Because how do I know what you're thinking? How do I know you're not going to go out in your car and get a gun? I don't know that. But I can tell you, we can try to keep our eyes open, be observant. All I'm asking you for is to be observant, be situationally aware of what's going on around you. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
In a situation where if I were in church with a small group of children, all these other people are not here, am I better off keeping those children together, or when I yell run, do I want them to run everywhere? Like, what thing is better?
Well, the question was, if you have a small group of children in here and you are the adult supervising them, What would you want to do? Keep them together or just tell them to run? And that's something that you have to train those kids and tell them. If I tell you to run, that's not playing. This is serious, not any kind of a joke. And the best thing is to have them scatter. Have a central meeting point so they know where to meet back up. But if you're an active shooter, it's hard to hit a moving target, especially if there's 15 of them or 5 of them. It's hard. You get a shooter's dilemma of which one I shoot. By that time, I can't shoot any of them because they're gone. And that's what we want. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we have specific, we have done, the question was, when we go out to schools, what are we telling the kids to do? We actually filmed several videos. I mean, have kids in schools today, or grandkids? So, what we have told them is specific to the school district, and we came up with, in collaboration, to tell them what to do. So they have very specific things because we're talking about a specific location. Like for here, we could come up with, and Brian and I will talk about the next step of this is making sure that the church has policies set in place to where we have basically a procedure of what to do. So this was the first step, trying to get everybody to think about it. The next step is we'll come up with some policies. We'll be basically the guiding factor, but not the planning or decisive factor in suggesting what you should do if something were to happen in this building. So each school has a specific plan to do, and we actually showed them videos on what to do. And then the deputies go out and they actually practice those drills. That's one of the things that came out of the Parkland for that new law that came into effect, is that we go out and quarterly do drills to make sure this. That's almost a modern day fire drill. I mean, everybody remembers the fire drills, like I said before. Line up, walk out the door, you get to the fence, turn around, wait for a big red truck. This, unfortunately, we're talking about saving their life in a different way. Yes, sir?
Given the layout of the church here, a shooter in the back and control all of it. Here we have a situation where we actually people who know what's happening back there. Assume that he knows the layout, that he knows the best places. Why is he working here? There's certain rules back there.
If your life depended on it, think of another way out of this room. What about all those exits right there that are beautiful, but if I have to break one of those to get out to save my own life, I will. Yeah, anything like that. Think about no matter what. That is making sure you don't hurt the church. However, I'm sure those are replaceable. You are not. And the church will forgive you for breaking such a beautiful piece of glass if you need to save your own life. Okay. Okay. Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you only create one entrance where bad guys can come in, the other exits you can still get out, you just can't get in. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that Brian and I will talk about also. Oh, I'm sorry. He said Duval County, JSO recommends that they only have, when mass starts, they shut all the doors to where they only have one point of entry, but you still can get out the other exits, but you just can't get in. So creating a more secure, where if somebody is right inside that door, they may be the first one to try to defeat them or even challenge them, like I said, hey, what are you doing here with that backpack on, or something like that. That was the question.
Just make a comment. The windows are not curtain windows. They're double pane, so they're two windows, but they're not curtain, so they should break.
I don't want to test it either, Father. but that's just something that, you never thought that here you're in a beautiful place of worship, that you may actually have to go through one of those windows to save your life and the life of your friends and family that are around you. So that's just something to think about.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are hiding and you're in a hiding place, you obviously don't want to use your vocal cords to give up your location, I would suspect. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office has text 911. I know all of your phones will be silenced during church anyway, correct? So your phones are already silenced, so you can actually go to your text screen and text 911, and one of our dispatchers will communicate with you, so you don't have to use your vocal cords and give up your location. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry? No, you can once you start talking to. The question was, when you text the 911, you have to give your location. More than likely, we'll be able to tell where you are in the area you are from the cell tower your phone is pinging off of. However, yes, once you start, when they answer, hey, what is your emergency? I'm in St. Anastasia Catholic Church. There's an active shooter. And then from there, if you're in a safe place, not stopping in the middle and saying, I need to text the 911. Remember, the 3 things we do, those 3 come first. Texting to 911 would be when you're safe, or you're in a place where you can't go any further and you're hiding and you need to stay quiet. Sure. It will take a while. It will take a while. However, remember, the one thing that we haven't talked about is what security the church already has in place. They pay for a deputy. How many people are happy to see the deputy let them out? All right? Right, for traffic? Well, we have talked about when they're not directing traffic, being right outside the front door. So that is a huge deterrent. If I had a patrol card that actually says what everybody thinks when they see it, you probably wouldn't be able to read it because it says like, stop acting foolish, put your seatbelt on, stop texting. It says all those things because all of those things happen when I drive up. So, yeah, and people do know the speed limit apparently when it's written on the side of my car too. So, but the 911 is basically you just open up a new text, 911, start typing, and the deputy or the dispatcher will communicate right back to you. That's something that St. Johns County's had for about a year now. So, man, anything else?
Yeah. Just one thing I'll add, they'll go over in waves. So these critical incidents, it's scientifically proven. You know, I barely graduated high school. But anyway, the science has shown that when you rehearse things in your mind, when it actually happens in real life, it will respond quicker and better. So not to doom and gloom and think about these things, not necessarily about an active shooter, but if there's a fire, what do I do when my alarm goes off in my house? Stuff like that. What happens if I have to slam the brakes on a car wreck? So if you think about those things in your mind, run through what you would do when that situation actually arises, it's proven that you will act in that manner more than likely and you'll react faster. So think about that in your head. This is something I want to throw out there.
Last thing I want to say, I haven't got the question yet, and does everybody remember the active shooter out in Colorado in the movie theater? Well, we talked about that, and somebody brought up that about being in a movie theater. Where is the best place to sit? And I want to share this with you, and you actually have the answer. Where is the best place to sit in the movie theater if an active shooter were to happen? So I heard near an exit. Where else? Near an exit? That's our answer? Everybody good with that one? Believe it or not, that's wrong. The best place for you to sit in a movie theater is where you can see and hear the movie the best. This is my point. I want you to be prepared for this, but not to the point where it is running your life. If you let this run your life, they've already won. Okay? Enjoy your life. Just have a plan if it goes bad. Okay? That's our biggest thing. Yes, ma'am.
So we're at Mass, and everything is geared towards the altar. And so during the Mass, there are leaders on the altar. The choir has like a better view of the back. Father Tim, and during communion, the Eucharist ministers on
and they see something happening back there, of course, all of you should be paying attention to what's going on in the readings and things like that. What would we do? That was the question. Well, that is something that the people in the back, the ushers in the back, would be the first ones to start trying to stop anything that comes through the door, simply by challenging. I'm not saying be there with a billy club waiting to hit somebody because they're prepared for the worst. What I'm saying is simply having somebody back there, and of course the second layer is the deputy outside the front door, is a huge deterrent. But those things that we have in place will hopefully diminish the possibility of it happening. But there again, we'll have to talk and see exactly. We can maybe pass out a code word if we hear, like, you know, they have several different code words in Walmart. Code Adam for a lost child, those things, they have different codes for that. We could say something like that. Could be an option to where everybody knows, go to the closest exit for safety. Yes, ma'am? Well, the question was, what is the pattern of an active shooter, basically? Well, I can tell you this. The one thing on an active shooter's mind is to try to create as much death and destruction as fast as possible because they know somebody like us is coming. How they would do it, it would be, of course, dependent on them. The sooner we have different layers of basically protection before they get into this room, because this room is most vulnerable, because everybody's facing one way. But there again, if you, as the volunteers, are part of the workings of the church, and you are strategically placed around to where you can see, or more than one person or more than one group can see the back door, the one point of entry that now we've shrunk it down to, if somebody come in here, they'd either have to break a door down, which would take some time, or they'd come in there, and we already have things in place if they do come in there. So, yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir. I think that's just going to create more confusion. Even though fire alarm means get out of the building, which is great, but there again, I mean, it could cause more confusion. You're going to have a lot of confusion based on what is actually happening with that. So, yes, ma'am. Well, I would think that all of them would think they would have a duty to make sure they're directing people out of the church. That is what I think would happen. Whether I told them they need to leave right now, more than likely, I can tell you probably your father back there would say he would try to make sure everybody gets out before he did. Whether I tell him anything or not, I'm pretty sure. Yes, ma'am. Well, remember that we're only closing it down to one entrance once everything is started. So everybody can come in how they normally do. So we're not changing that. But after the service has started, or right close, bring it down to one. Yeah. And that's something Brian and I can talk about as far as a specific policy that we can talk about tactics and things like that that would have a little bearing on how you would do it, specific to this building.
The main thing that I'm loving at this moment is you guys already have that awareness. You're having all these questions, building in your mind, what if, what if, what if. Because unfortunately there is not one single scenario. And we're all concerned about them coming in at a certain point during Mass when we're not paying attention, etc. What if they came in before Mass started and they've been sitting here all along? And their target isn't up here and they stand up and start shooting at everybody. I'm not trying to put fear in you, but you guys are getting it. You're gaining that awareness of what if. Because no matter what situation, even in our personal homes, we have security systems, we lock our doors and windows. If somebody wants to do something bad enough, they're going to do it. They're going to get in there. And it's very important for us to just have that awareness and make sure that we are being cognizant of our surroundings, watching the other people, and through hopefully some other measures that can be taken shortly after this presentation, after some discussions, we can make it a little more efficient for everybody in the event of a critical incident.
Like Josh said, yes, sir. Last question. Well, I don't work for the FBI, but they would call that a clue. So before we go, I would like to let us end in prayer.
Thank you all for coming for this excellent workshop, and thank you to all the deputies for being with us. Just a few thoughts. During the liturgy, I am up on the altar, and I do see who's coming in through the north exit, who's coming in through this door. I am blind. I never see this half of the church. So if you're sitting here, the choir, I never see you throughout the Mass. You're just out of my line of sight. So I don't know what goes on at this door. But I do see who comes in and out these doors. And if there's someone amiss, I usually lean over to the deacon and whisper to the deacon. And we kind of keep an eye on. So we are aware of what goes on. And as a deputy said, if you have to fight, be aware of what's available. So you have candlesticks, which are heavy and all of that. But of course, that's all up here. What do you do in the back? I just had a thought, and I don't know, if someone comes in the back, and we have to run, and we're trying to get out the doors. But an easy thing is, if the people who are sitting in the back, if everybody in the pews just grabbed their nice light book and all at once threw it out, it gives you time to do everything else. So, you keep telling me how heavy these books are. So if 100 people all threw them at the same time, it gives you a minute, which gives them, helps them get here quicker. So be aware. I mean, you've got flags back there that can be picked up. So, anything, as they're saying it, anything can be used. And if you have to fight it, of course, hiding and running, preferably. Even statues can be used. As they said, they're here, they're beautiful, but God wants us to save our lives, not to be concerned about a statue. The statue can be replaced. So we do want to do that. But thank you very much for your presentation. Some of these things we've talked about, like the locking of the doors and only having one door open during the Mass. The only challenge we have with that, and we can certainly continue to discuss it, these doors don't shut very well. And I don't know if you notice it, but I do. People are going in and out constantly during the Mass. So I'm not exactly sure. How do we stop people who are insisting they want to go out that door or that door? And I'll just give you an example of a priest in another parish. We always have an issue about people leaving during Holy Communion. And so the priest said, well, I'll slow it down. I'm going to give communion out at the door, so my giving out communion will block the door. Literally, people knocked him out of the way because they were insistent they receive communion and want to go out. And so that's one of our challenges is many of you are persistent. If I want to go out that door, I'm going out that door. How do we deal with that? So I don't know. That's why we'll have to talk about that. But even the diocese has recommended having only one door open during the service. And so we're certainly discussing it. It's just the practicality of it, of how do we make it happen. And we'll continue to discuss it. As the officer said, this is just the first step. And we'll continue to discuss this as we go along. But again, thank you for being here. And let us pray. Almighty God, Father, you are the God of life. We thank you for your loving care for us. We ask you to continue to shower your